Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Grown Women Growing Well. So glad you joined us for checking out this episode. And of course, I am Daphne Jones, your Bitcoin educator, and always the smart money chick. And I'm here today, as usual, with my awesome broadcast partner, Roberta Ravella, you marketing strategist. How's it going, girl?
It's going all right. I'm having a good day. It's beautiful weather outside. It's actually a little chilly here in Highland Beach, Florida. I understand you guys are in flames in Houston.
Well, the dragon is here, so it is what it is.
Fun times, fun times. Well, enough about the weather. This morning we have with us, very excited to have Star Babatoon. She's a public speaking and storytelling coach, expert, and her story is quite amazing. Welcome to the show, Star.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me. Hey, Roberta. Hey, Daphne. Good to see you, ladies.
Hey, how you doing? How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. It's all good. My theory is any morning I wake up, that's a good morning.
Uh,
You know,
we're winning. We're winning.
I haven't
Being,
tried
Yes,
being
we are.
grown, being grown women, we know that now.
yet. Okay. Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah. Had a couple of trips around the sun. It's a good day. We're here.
It's a good day. Absolutely.
It's a good day. Uh, I met Star at an event, and those of you that listen to us know how Roberta and I talk about events, physical
Mm-hmm.
in-person events. Yes, yes, they once happened, and they are happening again. Um, and she was speaking at the event. And remember, I always talk to you guys about, hey, do the VIP, the few extra bucks help.
Mm-hmm.
So I got the cool
Mm-hmm.
table and with the cool kids, but I also got to get up close and personal with the speakers. That's the other thing you get when you step up a bit. You get to spend time backstage in the special room and get
Yes.
a little extra. So I'm always going to plug VIP regardless of the event. Always going to do that. Always going to do that.
Yeah.
But I'm going to turn it over to Star. Tell us what's been going on and who you are and what you're into.
I agree with you totally, Daphne. VIP is where it is. You just meet a different level of people in the VIP. People who are serious about business. So, about me, I started out as a child actress, right? I did television shows, I did after school specials, commercials, the whole bit. Being on stage, that was my jam. I love being on stage in front of a camera, sharing my gifts, my light, love doing that. But I'll tell you one thing, grown women, at the height of my career, there was a lot of let's say hostility, tension going on in my family, and I didn't understand it because I'm just a teenager. But my theory was that it was my fault. My theory was that we were all having this tension in our lives because I was successful, because I was standing in the spotlight. So what do you think I did? I
Got out of the spotlight.
There you go. There you go. What a lot of women do, right? We take our gifts,
Yes.
we take our voices, we take our light and we dim it. I took my light and I put it in a box and I put it up on a shelf and I left it there for 25 years, hoping that would make other people feel better, that it would help our relationships. Do you think that helped?
No, because what we realize as grown women, hopefully all of us, is that it's not about us.
Yeah.
People's reaction to us, uh, it's not about us. Now, obviously, we know we have to um, how we participate and how we show up. If you obviously can contribute to a problem, but the majority of the time, especially when someone needs you to dim your light, they need you to be less. It's not about you at all.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just saying, I agree. And as a teenager, I didn't know that. So I go ahead
Yeah.
and do this. And I had a pretty good life, don't get me wrong, pretty good life. Got married, had a couple of kids. I became an attorney. Life was good. I was doing it. I was living the life. It's just that it kept feeling like something wasn't right. You ever have that feeling where everything is fine? Nothing is wrong. nothing's wrong, but something wasn't right. And I didn't quite know what that was. And I was not actually willing to investigate because, I had a good life. We've got the double six-figure income. We've got the beautiful house, vacations, kids in private school. I'm not messing that up. But Les Brown says that sometimes when you are too afraid to make a move in your life, life will move on you. And in the course of the year, life moved on me. Moved on me. My dad passed away. My marriage fell apart, and my job went away. All the things who defined who I was in that moment were gone, and I fell into a very dark depression. I fell into just, a self-pity party. And a friend of mine invited me to go to one of these, these public personal development seminar things, Daphne, that you love so much, invited me to one of those, probably a woman just like you. Come on, we should go to make you feel better. I did not want to go. I was not interested. You know how we get into our pity party. It's like, no, I'm the star here. I'm going to stay here. But she convinced me to go. And that's when I met Les Brown. I'm sitting in the audience. Onto the stage comes world-renowned motivational speaker Les Brown, and he blows me away. He's got stories and he's got, charisma, and he was amazing. And then he had a personal one-on-one conversation with me. Now there's 2,000 people in the audience, Roberta, but he had a personal conversation with me, right? And he talked about how grateful he was for all the lives that he has impacted. But he said his greatest regret were the lives he did not impact in the 14 years that he hid his light, in the 14 years that he dimmed his voice. And that just spoke to me because I had done the same thing for 25 years. And it was in that moment I decided, that's it, I'm coming back to the stage, this time as a speaker and trainer. And I trained with Les. I worked with Les. I ended up running his speaker training program, went on to become the #1 speaker at a national training company. And now I'm a public speaking and storytelling coach. And my goal, my desire, my passion is to help professional women, grown women, illuminate their voices and elevate their light so that they can have dynamic performances every time they speak on every stage they take. That is my story. And I'm sticking to it.
Well,
Nice.
when you're on a stage, particularly in a business setting, you become you gain authority because you're on the stage.
Yes.
And that always helps with our favorite thing, growing wealth, because it helps you acquire leads. And we know the story. You get leads, they turn into meetings, they turn into contracts. So,
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So that's no, go ahead.
I like, Star, that you talk about people not dimming their light in that, because what Daphne's saying is very true. But I see a lot of women who slide into that in a textbook sort of way. So I'm going from seeing somebody who's like Daphne, who's herself, who's dynamic, to someone who's speaking, and I feel like I could see anybody, right?
Right.
So how do women get over the feeling of, I'm not saying you need to get on stage and show your underpants, right? But that balance between I don't need to see all you, okay, and not sounding like somebody scrubbed you up, dressed you nicely, put a bow on your head and stuck you there and said, say these, read this.
Exactly.
Right? Where's that balance?
There is that balance. And I believe that it comes with confidence. It comes when you have clarity, when you know how to build connection, when you're sure about your content. I think that's where it comes. And all of this takes training. That's it. It takes training. That's all it does. People look at me and they'll see me on stage and says, "Oh my God, Star, you are a natural. You just belong there." Well, I belong there now, but I spent most of my childhood in classes, right? We had dance classes, ballet classes, jazz classes, tap classes. We had acting and scene study and improv. We even had singing classes, but that didn't work out so well. But the point is, the point is, with years and years and years of being on stages, yeah, I do command a certain amount of authority because I put in the work. And I believe for anyone who wants to have that kind of authority, it takes training. It takes training, coaching, developing. It is just a skill. It is just a skill, like what do you call that? Tying your shoes, just a skill, right? You weren't
Hmm.
very good at it when you first started. You would not get on stage and show someone how to tie your shoe at 4.5 because you probably couldn't do it well. But now you can tie your shoe without thinking about it. And I think it's the same thing. It's a skill. And it just takes time to build that skill. And mhm.
What do I do if I don't have years?
If you don't have years, it doesn't take, well, I believe that each of us has a gift. Each of us has a light, a gift that we have been endowed with. And one of the things that I love to do is sort of dig around so that we can expose your gift, right? So that we can expose your gift and get it out. And we take one step at a time. We take one step at a time. You do, you do a couple of videos. You have a couple of speaking engagements. You do a couple of one-on-ones to get that practice. You just practice and practice and practice. It doesn't necessarily take years to be as good as you can be. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
It might take
Yes.
years to be, I think it would take me a few more years to be as good as Les Brown, right? And I've been doing this for 15 years, but he's been doing it for 30. You know what I'm saying? But I'm
Right.
gonna be as good as I'm gonna be for where I am right now.
And maybe that's sometimes what gets in, I'll say my head, I'll own that, is comparing to someone who's been doing like, no, tomorrow you will not be Brene Brown, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Like, you have to give yourself that grace to, okay, this may not sound as great today,
Mhm.
but I have to keep working on it.
Exactly. Exactly. I actually did a post recently, talking about that exact thing is the comparison game. Always looking at the competition, right? And that's gonna jack you up every time. I remember when I was a teenager, and I've been, like I said, I've done all these acting classes, all these things for so many years. And I'd actually done a couple of TV shows and that sort of thing. And I got my big break. Oh, it was my big break, right? It was a Tuesday, and a friend of the family called my mom and said, "Hey, can you get Star in a plane to LA by Friday?" Right? It was a Tuesday. By Wednesday, I was in LA. Okay. So went to LA and I auditioned for a national primetime television show. And it was produced by Alex Haley and Norman Lear. Norman Lear of Good Times, Different Strokes,
Hell,
all of those shows. And
all
Alex,
the shows.
yes, all the shows. And Alex Haley,
Yeah.
fresh from his success the in the Roots series. So I get out there and I do my thing. Now, what I didn't know, what I didn't know is that the role was already given to Janet Jackson. Janet Jackson
Ooh.
already had the role. The contracts were already with her agent. But see, I didn't know any of that. All I knew is that this was my opportunity. All I knew is that I needed to do my best. And, end result is they gave the part to me. So I beat Janet Jackson in the lead role in a TV show. So there's that.
Go
But
ahead, girl.
but the point is if I had thought about my competition, if I had known Janet had auditioned for it, that would have changed, it probably would have changed me a little bit. So the point is, do not focus on the competition. You can only focus on you taking your opportunities and doing the best that you can do. By the way, Janet may have lost that role, but you see what that did for her career, right? But she's got 11 MTV awards, she's got 8 Grant.
Mhm.
And if she's watching this, Janice, you're welcome. All right.
Yeah. Well, and Daphne and I often talk about in sales and marketing, etc., how you really have to let go of the outcome. Like
Ooh.
if the only thing you can think about is I'm here and I have to win, I have to win, I have to win, or who you're competing against. Like, okay, I want Star to be my client, but I know this person over here is I'm competing with. Then I've taken my eyes off the goal, which is to be the right fit,
Mhm.
for you to find the right fit, for this to be the win-win. All those things that when we, how do I want to say this? You step into where you're supposed to be at that time and place. If I'm focused on competition, I'm focused on winning, I'm on the outcome, you lose all that.
You are absolutely right. You're absolutely right. We have to realize that we are not for everyone. Thank you very much. And everyone is not for us, right? We're not trying to get everybody, right? Anyone who's been in business, you've had the bad clients who were not for you, but you were so desperate, you got to have them and you get them and you're like, what in the world am I doing? And so we have to
Mhm.
understand that we're not for everyone, but at the same time, understand that when we are who we are, the right people will be attracted to us. I talk about when I went to that seminar and I first met Les Brown, he was not the only speaker. There were 10 speakers. They were some of the best speakers on the planet, right? Brian Tracy was there. Michael Gerber was there. Barbara DeAngelis was there. Art Linkletter, if you know who that is,
Uh-oh.
was there. I mean,
You're
all
dating yourself, girl.
exactly. He was pretty old at the time. So, all of these great speakers were there, and I watched them. But there was only one speaker who actually spoke to my heart. There was only one speaker who inspired me, and that one speaker changed the trajectory of my life because I wasn't trying to connect with each and every one of them. I was just connecting with the one who was meant for me. And I tell people as I train them in public speaking and storytelling, you just have to be you because the right person is going to be in the audience. And there could be someone who does exactly what you do, speaking after you. But the audience that's meant for you is meant for you. I was meant for Les Brown. That was it. And if we keep that in mind, I think that we will do better because you're absolutely right. If we are holding on, if we are tight, if we are desperate, they can smell it. And then we lose our
Mhm.
opportunities. But at the same time, I encourage people to go ahead and use their voices, to go ahead and get on the stage, to go ahead and start that business, do that business, because there are people who won't get to their next level unless you do what you're supposed to do.
Yeah. Who are you not saving?
Exactly, Daphne. Who are you not? Who is supposed to be be somewhere, but they're waiting for your voice, and you're keeping your voice in a closet in a box somewhere.
So you were talking about getting started. So we have because that's I guess the basic thesis of our show,
Hmm.
that because we're women of a certain age, we've had a couple of trips around the sun, that okay, we're not done yet. So it's time for a new deal for whatever's happened. Kids moved out the house, marriage ended, we were politely told to seek employment elsewhere. um some of the, I guess what I'm looking for is the nuts and bolts of saying, okay, I'm fit. This is a business. When did it hit you that this is a business and this is how I need to treat it? What were your first steps there?
Hmm. So, that's the whole thing about being an entrepreneur and being a speaker. You say you're in business, but what are you really doing? I got speaking engagements. I was working with Les. I was working with the training company, and I'm in business, but I'm not doing any business. Does that make sense? I know that I'm not doing any
Mhm.
business. I'm a contract trainer. Other people
Right.
get the business, and then I just step in. And
Right.
it
You're working on somebody else's business.
exactly. I'm working in somebody else's business. And so I was probably doing that for about 10 years before I realized I don't really have a business
Mhm.
because, I am not getting clients myself.
Mhm.
I had a
Mhm.
lot of, referrals. People want to talk to me. Oh, Star, can you help me? Great. But then I'm telling you, it was just a few years ago that I said, I need to be serious, meaning I need to be marketing myself. I need to, in order to get the business, I need to have programs to sell. I need to have the marketing to sell those programs. I need to be organized. The biggest thing that I had to do is that I need to watch my money. I need to have that organized. I need to be an S corp. I need to pay myself. What? Doing all of those back of the room things, back office things to put myself in business. And it took a while to figure that out, that I needed that, and then to put it together. And how do I put it together? Basically, I look at people who are doing it and I'm saying, who helped you do that? It's about getting the coaching and getting the training. It's like,
Mhm.
I do not want to sit and try to figure out social media. I don't want to try and figure out how Calendly works. I don't want to figure out the tech. That's not my thing. There are people who that's their thing. And I would rather hire them to do their thing so that I can do my thing. And that,
Mhm.
that was part of
Mhm.
the big growth where I think I turned from solopreneur to actually running a business.
Mhm. It's interesting that you say about your traffic, your marketing. That's traffic and conversion, right? I have been screaming this from the rooftops lately because many of my I'm in the realtor mortgage person space.
Got it.
When you don't own your traffic and you don't own your conversion, someone else owns your business. If I can say to you, Star, I've got 300 clients for you, and you go, yay, and then tomorrow I say, oh, sorry, we don't have any, bye, you are at my beck and call, right? You might be
Absolutely.
running a 1099, but you're my employee because unless you have that mechanism, and hey, listen, if you don't want to own your own business, there's nothing wrong with it.
Nothing wrong with it.
Nothing.
There's nothing wrong with it. But for an entrepreneur, it is essential that you own your traffic, that you have that down. And I think that's been the hardest thing for me personally to get
Mhm.
through. I mean, it was in mortgage sales for 20 years. And yeah, you go out and you pound the pavement and you get referral partners and whatnot. But at some point, you got a lot of people behind you, the bank that you work for, or whatever. But, Daphne as well, you leave corporate and ain't nobody handing you nothing.
No, I,
Nobody's handing you anything.
oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Owning
Absolutely.
your own clients. Because I learned the hard way in life insurance.
Mm,
I sold a lot of policies, and because again of lack of knowledge, because you don't know what you don't know.
mhm,
I left a lot of money on the table because when I changed companies, the
mhm.
client stayed there.
Right.
The residuals and things of that nature. So I certainly brought that with me into this arena. And again, uh, you have to be forgiving of yourself for what you didn't know and just to keep it moving.
Mhm.
Mhm,
Like recently, I've come to the understanding we're going to have to develop our own RSS feed.
mm,
It's don't want to get all in the weeds, but it's what the show is, and people subscribe and so forth because it technically belongs to the folks that we host our podcast with right now because it's
Mhm.
their RSS feed. But you can develop your own. That's the original thing behind podcasting. But I'm saying all that to say about owning when your income, what you're trying to do, you're creating intellectual property. Star Babatoon is intellectual property, and the consulting and all of that. That's your
Mhm.
intellectual property. Some came out of your head, you created. So you
Mhm.
do want to own all of it, or at least as much of it as you can. You have to build a
Mhm.
team. That's how you scale. But you do want to own your intellectual property. And how do I do that? How do I go about that? So
Yeah.
you don't show up and all of a sudden you're locked out and somebody else, you can't even say your own name on stage.
Ooh.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
for instance, Mars
Yeah.
Day, the time.
Mhm.
Remember them star?
Yeah. Unfortunately, not unfortunately, but yeah, I do.
He
The
can't sing.
bird.
He can't sing any of that.
Really?
No,
Nope. He
he
doesn't
can't
own
sing
any of it.
any of it. All those 3 awesome albums that you and I would still pay for him to go hear. We'd pay for to go
I would pay to see him
do the Oak
see
Tree.
him do the bird. I would
Yep,
pay.
we pay to do the Oak Tree. We pay. Nope.
I don't even
And
think he can use his name, can he?
he can't use Morris Day in the time. He can call himself Morris
Right.
Day,
Okay.
but the
Got it.
fact that
Wow.
he the
How?
intellectual property part. So it again, it's the growing wealth. It's also it's owning the IP. That's just what I wanted to bring out, and you
Right.
brought that up so well about hey, there's some back end stuff that you have to take care of at some point.
Yep. Yep.
Mhm. Mhm.
Don't let it stop you
Well,
from
and
getting
that
started. Though.
but
That's
it
my
also
message.
goes back to what you were saying about the speaking. If it's not something you know, it's okay. Find somebody who knows, who already spent years learning it, and let them either teach you if you don't have the funds or the time, whatever. But to assume that you walk out of corporate and walk into being a business owner and you know everything, or I don't think anybody assumes from a female perspective that they know everything. It's more that they should. Why
Right.
don't I know this? Well, you didn't do it yet.
Yeah. No, I think that's so important. There's so much to running a business that people don't know. And they'll start a small business, they'll jump out there. Oh my gosh, they'll spend time on their website. Come on now, or I'm gonna go write a book but where's the business? Where's the structure?
Yeah.
You need a little bit, you need a little bit more than that. A little bit more than that.
Yeah.
And I agree with you, Daphne. Don't let that stop you from getting started. No,
Right.
no. Go ahead. Get started because I believe it's easier to change lanes when you're in the flow of traffic. Do you know what I'm saying? Because you
Right.
know how it is when you're trying
Mhm.
to get into the freeway and you're at a full-on stop.
Ah,
It's hard to get in. But if you're already moving and you realize, "Ooh, I need to do things a little differently," you can easily move from lane to lane. You can easily get where you want to go when you are
Mhm.
moving. So
Moving.
better to be moving, but it is a mindset. It is a mindset, just like when you get to be a grown woman and
mhm.
you realize, I'm not doing that, I'm not doing that, I'm not putting up with this, I'm not acting, I'm just going to be who I'm going to be, right? You get grown and you're like, I'm done. It is the same thing when your business gets grown, right? It becomes a fact where I'm not doing that and I'm not doing that either. I'm going to do what I do best, and I'm going to hire the people to do what they do best. I mean, I think that's how you have a grown business. Realizing you can't do it all, you shouldn't do it all. It's about graduating to that CEO mindset, right? The
Right.
CEO
Mhm.
mindset. The CEO is not in the weeds, right? He's not
Mhm.
setting up the click funnels. He's not doing the email sequence. He might be writing the emails or dictating the emails, but he's not doing all of this minutia because to have a CEO mind, you've got to be thinking of what's the next iteration of my business? Where's my next market? How do I grab that? You need time to be thinking about these things, meaning you need to hire people to do that stuff.
Absolutely.
You need to have a team. You need to have a team. Yep.
Absolutely. I know if you think about it in a way of what's on if you had a plate, right? And you put all the stuff on a plate and in your mental plate, what's on your mental plate? And if it's things that you're not good at, I mean, there is nothing more draining, I think, than just trying to force yourself. Okay, I need to do this. It's got to be done. I have to do it, whether it's a money thing, a time thing. I can't pay, somebody to do my laundry. That's terrible. Man, if that's on your mental plate, pay somebody to do your freaking laundry. Get it off the plate. Like whatever it is, if it's that all the way up to you need a CFO, get the
Exactly.
stuff off your mental plate that
Exactly.
doesn't belong there.
So that you can grow. And then what keeps us from doing that is sort of this scarcity mindset. Oh, I can't afford it, or I can't afford it. And I've definitely spent time there. There,
Yep.
there are things now that I know I need to afford, but give me a minute. Just give me a minute. But it's a scarcity mindset where I got to do it all myself. I got to do it all myself. That's a place to begin. But if you're trying to grow, if you're trying to scale, you cannot stay there, right? Like, as a grown woman, you cannot live with four other roommates in a two-bedroom apartment, the kind of thing you do when you're in college. You just,
Right. There's a point where
that's not working out.
that's not working. That's not
That's
working.
Right.
Because
great.
I often see the grind culture because I spend so much time online because that's where my business is. So hence the podcast. Okay, those 20 somethings, 30 somethings, because in a sense I did the same thing. Hopped in the back of my buddy's car and we moved to Houston. We moved 1,100 miles on a plan and edibles. But anyway, so that was it. So, but you do that, and it was, X amount of us in the 2-bedroom. You're waiting tables. You're staying up all night drinking coffee.
TV
That's it.
on a milk crate.
Right. That is what it is. Mattress on the floor, and that's cool for that time period.
Right.
Sister not doing that now. It's like, no.
It's not happening.
I need a proper mattress. The air conditioning must work. Things of this nature. So there we are. So again, you have to find what your version of financial independence is.
Sure.
So that's what I often put out there. What is your version of work? What is your version of business? Because you might want to stay a solo entrepreneur. Still got to bring in folks to help you. Virtual assistants, as you said, someone that writes emails, who's going to do the website, things of that nature. But you may want to keep it small. You like walking to your home office and walking out of it at a certain time. Again, your design, because you reached a point in your life where it's your design of what you want to do.
Yep. I remember working with a business coach, and she was, hitting that $1 million mark, and of course hiring all these people and then managing these people, and she was absolutely overwhelmed. She was overwhelmed and she hated it. She hated managing people. I mean, more than the one or two. All she had a whole and it made her miserable. And she decided, well, maybe I don't want to be $1 million business. Maybe that's not my space. And she just scaled her business back to multiple six figures, and she was happy there. And if that's where you're happy, find your happy place and be happy.
Absolutely. Thank you. Absolutely. But there's no, virtue in the grind. Now, there is honor in work, there is honor in showing up, but working 14 hours a day is not a virtue. It's often not even necessary. But you see out there, and I guess it's part of the puritanical work culture, whatever that we're still under. I won't talk about patriarchy on this podcast, but a lot of that is like, okay, if you need to do it, there's a point. It's like we're talking about that balance when you're on stage. Am I showing my underpants, or am I all the way over here in textbook, right? There's still a balance in there. Some days maybe you need to, some seasons maybe you need to, but there's also a season for I want to do this many hours, I want to do this work, I want to make this much money, and I'm good. I'll grow here, I'll grow there. I'm not saying being stagnant, but the idea of Daphne, like you're saying, the grind culture, that somehow you're going to earn a place in heaven because you worked longer and harder than me, it's ridiculous.
That is true. That is true. I know when I was an attorney, there was this one rainmaker, Bill, and Bill ended up being a very good friend to me. But he was the kind of person like, okay, for us normal attorneys, we were required to bill 2,100 hours in a year. 21 hours in a year is 40 hours a week times 52, but that's 40 hours of work. It takes you 60 hours to do 40 hours of work that you're billing for. 2,100, that was for the average person. He was billing 3,600 hours a year. This man lived on 4 hours sleep. He was the guy. I mean, he was the rainmaker. He's bringing the money in, but he worked crazy hours. And his whole theory was, I'm going to work, I'm going to grind it out. I'm going to work this hard for 20 years, and then I'm going to retire early. And he did work that hard, retired at 45, died at 55.
Mm.
From a rare disease that nobody's heard of. Well, okay, they've heard of it, but it was a very rare disease. And it is my theory that 20 years of grinding actually shortened his life. That's how I feel about the grind. You need to have some balance. This machine that we have right here, it needs balance. This machine up here, it needs quiet time in order to rejuvenate, right? It's like trying to run your phone at 7%. You can't get a lot done when you're trying to run your phone at 7%. And eventually your phone won't charge beyond 7%. Does that make sense? So
Absolutely.
we've got to, I feel there's a time and place for it, but there's got to be balance. There's got to be balance, and I've been doing a lot of trying to balance myself. I have to actually put in my calendar personal time. Yeah, like 6:30, I need you to be done, right? And most of the time I can do it. Now, there are some times when I'm going to be up till 11 o'clock. Last night was one of them. I got a presentation to do a little bit later on. It's like, okay, but now it is sometimes. It's not all the time because we all
All
need
the
that
time.
balance, especially as we get growner. Yeah, we need more rest. we need more downtime.
Well,
Absolutely.
definitely, because with your previous profession, the law, that's what drives uh, many women from the field because they have to start making choices at some point, particularly when they have children, because it is the hours. I mean, law is the grind culture. As you said, to get 40 billable, I've got to do 60.
Exactly.
Okay. So
Exactly.
who's raising the kids? So,
Exactly.
which is real. It again, because that affects, as women, that affects our ability to grow wealth.
It does.
Because the majority of the country works for a living. They W-2 income. They trade time for dollars. And if your time is affected by children, caring for elder parents, which tends to fall on women, it's going to affect your ability to produce dollars, which affects your ability to invest dollars. And there we go.
There you
So,
go.
and your ability to produce some form of financial independence.
Absolutely.
So, how do you tweak that? And that usually leads to entrepreneurship. Fastest growing
Exactly.
business owners out here are women.
Because women they feel the need to own their time because in this traditional market, like you said, it is a grind. I was working 60 hours a week. But let me just say, I actually went part-time at my law firm. I went part-time at my law firm, which meant I was working 40 hours a week. That was part-time at my law firm, was working
Mm-hmm.
40 hours. When I
40
went
hours a week.
full-time, 60, 70, sometimes 80 hours, right? And one of the reasons that I ended up leaving my law firm is because I was separated from my husband, and so I had my kids every other week, and a big project came up. So I gave up my week with my kids to focus on this project. I must have put in 70, 80 hours to focus on this project. At the end of the project, my boss called me and ripped me a new one because he didn't like the process I went through to get to the end result. I'm sorry, excuse me.
Wow.
I just sacrificed and so that was the end of that job because I said, well, let's say I expressed my emotions and and then I didn't have a job anymore.
Yeah. Were you difficult, Star? Were you being ungrateful?
Apparently I
Were you
was.
unappreciative?
Apparently I was. I let him know how I felt. And
Yeah.
next thing you know, Star, we've heard some things about you and we're
Ah,
going to put you on a performance plan. I was like,
oh yeah, the
Uh,
performance plan.
yeah.
but I will say this in my defense, being an attorney, I was like, no problem. I will leave and you will give me 4 months severance.
Mhm.
And they said, okay. I'm like, yeah, because you guys you're, I know what you're doing and it's not okay. So why don't we just agree? You pay me 4 months severance and I will leave tomorrow. And that's what we did. That was what we did. And it was, in retrospect, the best thing that could have happened. Because I was feeling that trapped there, but I wasn't willing to do something about it. So the job went away.
Sure, they were
Yeah.
paying you.
Huh?
They were paying you.
Yeah.
And you went to law school and all those expectations. What do you mean you don't want to be a lawyer anymore?
There was that. Exactly. Exactly. Do you know how much money you're making? Do you know how much money your
Mhm.
mom made? Right?
Right.
How did you walk away from this? Look at that house. Have you seen your car? You're not walking away from this. But, God had other plans for me. And so we moved
Yeah.
on. We moved on. But I mean, I love the
It's
life that I live now. I have so much more freedom than ever before. My kids are grownish now, they're grownish, 26 and 21. And I just moved into an apartment in New York for 2 months. I'm just here for 2 months. My brother lives here, and I want to solidify my position as favorite aunt. So I just moved
mm,
to New York for 2 months, rented some furniture, and I'm going to be the best aunt ever. And then I'm going to go back to Virginia to my house. Do you know why? Because I run my own business and I can. For some people, it's taking
mhm.
vacation of going wherever they want to go to the Riviera, work there for 2 months, go to Jamaica, work there for 2 months. Now, I went to Middletown, New York, people. Middletown, Middletown, New
That's a
York.
good sister.
That, that's where I want to be. And
Yeah.
I can.
That's your version of financial independence.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
That's your version.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I know one thing I learned as a young loan officer in Northern Virginia, where you usually have two six-figure, two master's degrees, two PhDs, whatever. You've got high-driven folks there. And I will never forget the first time I was behind the desk of a couple 20 years older than me making so much money, and they had nothing but debt.
Mm,
How much you earn and how many hours you work does not equate wealth. They had nothing but pages and pages of debt. And that is a conscious choice, like you're saying, Star. Okay, huge house, beautiful beamer, 80 hours a week, and that wasn't good enough. Where do you find yourself? A lot of Americans find themselves overweight, addicted to something, broken relationships, and in massive amounts of debt
yep.
because that salary, that 80 hours, the validation that they're looking for is not where they're looking for it.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I have been there, done
Yeah.
that. Thank you
The
very
the
much.
life,
Have a t-shirt.
let's say, as the salary increase, the lifestyle increase. You get lifestyle bloat. And part of the thing is that when they tell individuals to, or they suggest, and that you should live on less than you make, there has to be discretionary income that's investment income, that you're getting some portion of the income you're bringing in, creating dollars itself. Again, in whatever you choose to. You want to play it safe and put it in the ETF. You like stocks, you like cash flowing real estate. Uh, hell, you buy wine or art. Pick something. Just pick something. Just the consumption of all your resources is
Mhm.
the issue. And
Mm-hmm.
folks that are at a certain level of trading income for time, they're nurses, they're truck drivers. What do you mean they don't have any money? Yeah, well, you're looking at it. It's sitting in the driveway and they're living in it and they're taking vacations with it. So when it comes time to do other things that actually require cash, it doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist.
Even though they're these incredible, what you consider incredible sums. Athletes are a prime example.
Prime example.
Lord.
Dude, you went through 120 million?
How do you do that?
In 10 years, not even in a lifetime. Like,
Yeah,
You actually got 120 million. This is
somebody
paid.
paid you $120 million.
Right. Because basketball players, they get their contracts. They're
Right.
not like football players. They
Mhm.
actually get what they signed for.
Okay.
And when you read those stories and you're like, okay. And it's all due to spending. I mean,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we got, my ex and I, we got into it as well, and built up that debt. I had $100,000 in credit card debt. How do you even get there? $100,000 in credit card debt.
purse here, watch
it's
there,
crushing.
cute
Uh,
shoes. Don't take long.
some things happen, right? Especially after divorce, because suddenly now I'm on one income, you know, and so I use my credit cards to balance that out. Anyway, learned a lot of lessons from there. Bankruptcy, had to start over. But a lot of it, Daphne, as you already know, being, a wealth educator, is I didn't know. I didn't know. I just wasn't paying attention to it. And then I started reading the books on money mindset. One of the books I read was Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. I'm telling you, game
Hmm.
changer for me, just in how I looked at money and how I spent money. And that whole savings thing, that's for people who have money. I had money, I didn't really save. Okay, that's a problem. So when I started over, my thought was, the book said, that you should put away 10%. I'm like, nah, it's not happening. So I started with $10. If I could put $10 every time I got a check, that's all I did, $10. And I was able to move that up to 5%, move that up to 20% or whatever it is. And I'm able to move it up at this point to 25% of my income goes away. But I had to build up to it and realizing how important it is. Of course, the older you get, you start realizing, hey, that whole retirement thing, I should do something about that.
About that.
But the education that you do, Daphne, is so important because we're not taught that in school. All we see is that if you want to look like you have money, you got to be spending it and doing like this. And it's a sad thing.
But
It
what's
is
the
a sad
value of
thing.
looking like you have money?
There's value in it, Daphne.
Because I love the memes that come out now. There's one that's floating around now. There's Bill Gates and Warren Buffett sitting together on the couch. And they hit you with the meme. There's not a Rolex in this picture. There's not a pair of Gucci loafers in this picture. They just go down. They're just
Yep.
they're two guys sitting there in button-down shirts and khakis.
And pleated khakis at that,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
right?
Yeah, your dad's khaki. Well, I guess so.
Yep.
They are dads. They're yeah, because everybody's
Yeah.
60
Yeah.
plus in that picture. But that whole concept, or Jay-Z, he put up one. This is me, worth about two. He was worth about $100,000,
Mm-hmm.
and he said he had on over 75,000 in jewelry. And then he put a modern picture of himself now, and nothing but the wedding ring is pretty much is what he had on, just his
Mm-hmm.
wedding ring. And he because he's a billionaire now, and he
Yeah.
goes, worth 1 billion, worth 200,000, worth 1 billion. So I hope that's getting out there, that
Wow.
those behind us, because it certainly wasn't that way, because I do
Mm-hmm.
remember having the house, what you got sitting in the driveway, the whole thing, the purse, because I went through the purse thing, purses and
Mm,
watches.
mm.
so so there we are, instead of
I
buying
still got my
Exxon.
purses, but it's after the fact. It used to be the first thing I bought. I just had a huge commission check. I went to New York City to the Gucci flagship store to get my purse.
See, there you go, you're flossing now.
Yeah, but at that point in my life, it would have been nice if I'd have bought some ExxonMobil stock with that house payment of a handbag that now sits in my closet and I never wear it, right?
Yep.
So, yep. So, Star, all this stuff we're talking about, these are the experiences that we've all had and what we've learned. How do you help people put that into the stories that they tell in their business and on stage and on speaking that, I mean, obviously propels a business forward and then helps them share their voice and what they've learned?
So basically, there's three reasons why you want to tell your story. Three reasons why, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, you want to tell your story. The first reason is because it gives you distinction. There's 17,500 coaches in the United States. You know what I'm saying? There are over 60,000 real estate agents. There are like $12.3
In Houston.
million. You're right. $12.3 million women-owned 12.3 million women-owned businesses. There's some competition out there, right? And so what's going to make you different? And please don't tell me I give great service. Look, you're not competing against the people who don't give great service. So all y'all give great service. I really care about, yeah. You are competing against the other ones who do. What distinguishes you from the next business? It's your story. It's your story. And so that's one of the reasons why you want to tell your story, because it distinguishes you from the crowd. People are listening for that connection. That's the number two reason you want to tell your story, because it drives connection. It creates connection. You know how it is when you meet somebody for the first time? What do? You start telling stories. Now, whether that is like a romantic someone or like a business someone, you start telling stories and you get to like the person. You make that connection. Your story is going to allow people to connect with you. When you show that vulnerability, that gives you credibility. Science shows that when that connection is happening, when people are in story listening mode, they the brain releases a chemical, oxytocin, that makes them like
Mm-hmm.
you a little bit more. It makes them believe in you and what you're saying and in your motives. And that connection is what leads you to conversion. Third reason you want to tell your story is because it leads to conversion. Again, studies show that when people have that connection, they are more willing to buy. They have more brand loyalty, and they don't care so much about the price. And we've all been
Mm-hmm.
there. We've all been there where we don't
Mm-hmm.
mind spending a little extra, to work with Daphne, because I really like her. She makes me feel a certain way inside. You know how it is when you are all set to buy that Gucci purse, Roberta. You are all set to
Mm-hmm.
go into that Gucci store, and that salesperson that make a connection with you, you'd be like, I'll come back.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go to
Disappointed.
exactly.
I'm heading to the Louis store.
Yes, and you're not
Mm-hmm.
wasting that money because there's no connection. So
Yeah.
distinction, connection, conversion. Those are the reasons that you want to tell your story. And that story is what
Mm-hmm.
lets the audience know who you are, what you got, and why we should care. And you
Yes.
gotta have that. You gotta have that in order to increase your connection, in order to increase your conversion. So that's why it's necessary. So how do you find it? How do you do it? Well, I can help you with that. But the one thing that I will tell you as you're thinking about your story is you want to think about the lessons that you've learned. Because you're not telling your story just for blah, telling your story.
Hmm.
What is the lesson you've learned from that story, right? Make
I
that
mean, that's what we were just doing, right? Telling your story is working 80 hours. Daphne about the money, me about where the validation is. That's all part of each of our stories. And then all of us kind of came to the same conclusion, right? Like I'm not seeking validation in that anymore. I'm not wasting my now I'll still buy a Gucci bag, but after I blah blah blah, right?
right. Right.
Um so yeah, I mean we just kind of did what you're saying.
Exactly, exactly. And that's where your stories come from. That's where your stories come from. And here's the deal. You're either in two camps, right? You're in the camp of, I don't know what my story is. I had a normal life. I don't really have a story. Or you're in the second camp of, I got 17 stories. Which one? I don't know which one. And that's why you think of the lessons that you've learned and the lesson that you want to share. And then you find the story that supports that lesson. You find the story that supports
Mhm.
that point. That is how you decide what story to tell. You know, what is it you want your audience to get out of it? Tell a story that best supports that. And please do not tell me the whole story, right? There's a difference between story reporting and storytelling. Story reporting. Well, first I went to elementary school and then I went to high school and then I went to college and I took this class and this other class and then I dropped that class. Come on, people. I don't need to know all the details, right? We need to move it along. We need to move it along. You know, we have my partner and I have a 3-day Master Storyteller Academy where we walk people through what we call our 3D formula, right? We help you discover your
Mhm.
story, we help you develop your story, and we help you deliver your story. And that often starts with a one-on-one coaching session with me, right? Where we're doing a clarity call. And in that clarity call, this is where we dig in and find the framework for your story. And people start and they want to tell me every little detail. And then that happened, and then that happened. I'm like, okay, I need you to get to the part where this happens. I need you to get to the part where that happens. Right. Woo! Fun time. But I'm able to pull all of those little nuggets. And because I know how a story is structured, I take those little nuggets, I remix it, and I hand you your story. Right. And people are like, how did you get a story out of all those nuggets? Because I know what pieces to pull. Because there's a difference between story reporting and storytelling, right? You know, we're trying to create, we're trying to tell a message. We're not trying to give you every single detail of what happens. And that's okay. That's okay. Because if you haven't learned this, you haven't learned this. You know, like we were talking about the money. If you haven't learned it, you haven't learned it. And so that's what we do. So if you wanted to do your story, that's what I would suggest. Look first to some lesson that you've learned that you'd like to share. Find the story that supports that lesson. Do not give me all the details, just the details enough that are going to make that lesson. So there you have it.
Oh, we got dead air. Uh-oh. That's what happened. We
That's
lost Roberta.
interesting. Yes, yes, we seem to have lost Roberta. So
Let me switch this out right quick.
no problem. No problem. And you know what? Since I'm sitting here and we are still running, here's what I'd like to share with you. I want to share one more thing with you, and this is how you would put a story together. How do you pull the story together? So you thought about your message and you think about the story. And this is the question that people have for me all the time. All right, Star, I know the story, but how do I put it together? How do I organize it? Right? So there are 5 steps to a story structure. 5 steps, but I'm gonna give you 3. I'm gonna give you 3 steps, easy peasy story structure. You ready? Here it goes.
Yes.
The story goes like this: once upon a time, then one day, and now. That's how you structure the story. That's a simple way. This will get you started. Once upon a time, then one day, and now. Give me context. Where did you start? Now, then there has to be some sort of conflict. Something has to happen. Then one day, look, if you have no conflict, you have no story, people. So something has to happen that changes things. And then wrap it up with your conclusion. So that's an easy peasy way to put your story together.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And want to be respectful of your time because we're getting into Joe Rogan territory. I want to thank you for coming on the show, Star. It's been great having you. And tell us and our listeners how they can get in contact with you.
Well, the name is Star Babatune, as you see written there. It's Star Babatune, star at starbabatune.com, website, starbabatune.com. And I would invite you to, every month, I have what I call a speaker clinic. This is an opportunity to talk about stories, to talk about speaking. Every month, I have a different topic, and I allow you to ask questions, and I allow you to do a hot seat. So you're working on a story, you want my feedback, jump on jump on our hot seat. And so you can get that information by going to speakerclinicwithstar.com.
All right.
Speakerclinicwithstar.com.
We'll
Speaker,
have all that in the show notes as well.
excellent. And I have it every month. So the next one is this Saturday of May. It's generally the second Saturday of the month. So sign up for May or sign up for June. So that'll be a great way for us to keep in touch.
Thank you so much. This was fantastic.
Thank
Hey.
you. It was great chatting with you, grown women.
Yeah, it's great hanging out. Great hanging out. And so we're going to get out of here. Bye bye.
Bye.